Good morning, everybody. Just let everybody come in. Hope you're all well. Lovely to have you with us. Right, everyone's just coming in. If you want to say hi in the chat, please do. That would be lovely. It's absolutely baking today, isn't it? So I hope you get some sunshine later. It's 32 degrees in London today, so do let us know where you are in the world. And I'm sure it's hot everywhere. Lovely to have you with us. Good morning, everybody in Sheffield. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Very warm Staffordshire. Hi, Gail. How are you? Lovely Gail from Lloyds is with us. Wonderful. Keeping cool. Yeah, lots of ice cream today, I feel. Exactly. Perfect. So people are coming in, which is wonderful. So welcome to our fantastic webinar in partnership with Lloyds Bank Academy that we're hosting this morning. And it's all about legalities for small businesses. Now, you know, we hear it a lot that everybody gets so excited with their small business idea. They, go, fast out the trap to get it organized and done. They get their lovely marketing, they get their lovely website. But unfortunately, at times, legalities that we need to protect ourselves can get forgotten, or we just don't know what to do in the first place. So we're really excited to be joined by the lovely Lucy Wheeler, aka Lucy Legal, which who's one of our incredible members of our small business community, who is going to talk us through a wonderful Legalities Masterclass. As you can see on this slide here, you can find out more about Lloyds Bank Academy and all their incredible support that they have for small businesses. So please do click on the QR code and everything will be there as well. So thank you so much for Lloyds for partnering with us on this. As I said, Gail from Lloyds is in the chat, so she'll be sharing relevant links, etc. And if you do have any questions throughout from what Lucy's going to share with us, do pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom if you can, and we'll try our very best to get to them. If you pop them in the chat, they do get a little bit lost, so if you could pop them in the Q&A, that would be wonderful. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to the lovely Lucy Wheeler. Thank you so much for joining us, Lucy, and enjoy, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to all of you for turning up. I am so impressed that there are so many people here wanting to move forward with the legal side of running their business, especially on a day when it is absolutely boiling outside. So I feel like if there were prizes, I would be able to give you some now for showing up for your business. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for joining me. I'm going to deliver an interactive session with you today. I'm going to go through some of the key things that we need to be thinking about when we're legally protecting our businesses. And I want this to be a really great session for you. So please do ask me questions and utilize me whilst I am here so that I can help you. So the principal part of what I'm going to be doing is covering off the legal side of running a business. And as Karen just said, it can often feel very, very daunting, the legal side of running a business. And to the point where people don't even get started. I know that Karen sort of said we can get straight out the traps and we can be really excited and we can just go and then be like, oh my goodness, I'm not sure if I've done the legal side of things properly. But equally, people often don't get started at all. And for many people, it can be the legal elements of running a business can actually be a real barrier. And it can be something that stops you from even going forward and running your business and even getting started at all. So what we're going to cover today is how to put robust terms and conditions in place so that you can sell legitimately, avoid getting refunds, and we'll be looking in detail at what to actually put in those terms. We're going to look at your privacy obligations, including now AI compliance, and I'll be asking you about who's using AI just in a little while, and also what is intellectual property and do you need to consider it. So there's some main themes that we're going to be looking at, and I'm going to be guiding you through those as we go. Firstly, before I get too far into this, I'll just introduce myself in case we don't know each other yet. I'm Lucy Wheeler, often now known as Lucy Legal, and I support entrepreneurs with the legal side of running a business. I always say that the legal side empowers the way you run your business. It helps you to make good decisions. It helps you to understand what risks are going to come up. It helps you to feel excited about running your business. And I know that legal and exciting don't normally go together, But what I want for you is when you are potentially going to start working with a client, that you then feel excited to send your terms and conditions over. Or when someone purchases something from you, you feel excited that you are going to be able to deliver what you said you're going to deliver, and you're not thinking, oh gosh, I hope I don't get a refund request. Or even if you do get one, because sooner or later it will happen, you feel confident that you know how to manage it and you know what you're doing when it does come up. And so everything I'm going to talk about today is going to be information only. I am a qualified UK-based solicitor, but I can't give you advice in this session because I don't know anything about your businesses. Okay, so I would love to invite you in the chat box this time to let me know what word you would use to describe the legal side of running a business. So you don't have to spare my feelings on this. What word springs to mind when you first think about the legal side of running a business? I would love you to pop that in the chat box for me. Suzanne said boring. We've got scary, tired, tired, no, not tired. That's tiring, it says. Pain, that's an interesting one. Security, yes, I like that, Hannah. John saying necessary. Yeah, and Ramina saying complicated. Okay. Daunting, says Anya. Scared to get it wrong, says Tyra. Mystery. Oh, I love that. No one's ever said mystery before, Katie. I like that. And Caroline said intimidating. Yeah, Cassie said essential. Kimberly saying money. Yeah, there's so many words. And apart from mystery, I feel like I've heard a lot of them before. Like, I feel like lots of times people say boring, they say confusing, they say overwhelming. And it's all of these things, like, it doesn't sound like a fun way to run a business, doesn't it? It doesn't sound like it's going to be something that you would want to invest your time and effort and money in if it's going to feel this way or make you feel this way. But the flip side of it is when you've done it, it can feel really exciting, empowering, engaging. And that's the feeling that I want you to have. Okay. And what we need to do when we're thinking about the legal start point of running our business is we need to start about and think about where to protect, what we need to protect. Okay. So often people will come to me and go, okay, I know I've got to do it. You've told me I've got to. I know it's the law. We have to do it. So I need to ask you, what would you want to protect? And that's the best place for you to start thinking about the legal things for your business. Because what I want you to also be aware of with this is that there isn't one size fits all. There is no cookie cutter approach. And whilst I will support you with a list and a checklist, and I'll give you a downloadable to walk away with from this to get you on the right path, you need to think about what you want to protect in your business. Okay? And that's going to look different for everybody. But for most people, it's probably going to look like protecting your time. It's going to look at protecting your reputation, protecting your ideas, and protecting your clients. And they're just a few things that you might want to protect, okay? So think about what you would like to protect in your business. Lots of people will say things like their IP. IP is intellectual property. And people think, I want to protect my ideas and the way I do things. That's fine. Everybody's list will be slightly different. So whether you're watching this live or you're going to watch this, if you're catching up on a recording, the first task for you to do is to think about what you need to protect in your business, okay? And we'll look at how these actually then are going to follow through into actual legal protection. So in terms of time, you're going to want to get paid, probably, for the work that you're doing. You're going to want to make sure that you're charging the right amount. And that's something that comes up a lot. So people say, yeah, I know I want to get paid. I'm happy about that. But like, I'm just worried, like, I don't even know what to charge. And that's like holding me back as well. Like, I know if I'm going to put my fees in this contract, then it's set forever. Not necessarily. You could put in the provision to have fee increases or fee reviews. Okay, so as you'll be working with someone maybe a year on a yearly basis, you could say, this is our fee for this year. We do review them and they will go up. And it may be that the person says, well, I'm not going to work with you when your fees go up. And that's fine, but at least you've allowed for a price increase. Or what about when the scope increases? What if you're somebody who's potentially a graphic designer or a marketing service provider, and you want to deliver your services, but you just know that when you do, the client you've got experience that the clients actually do their own thing and they don't tell you properly what the project is meant to look like, and it can really get out of hand. you need to make sure that your terms and conditions are going to cover off this project or scope creep and any changes that happen that you can't possibly have known about at the start. Maybe neither of you could have known. Maybe they could have known, but maybe they don't know, okay? Maybe it isn't clear at the start. So it's about having provisions in your terms and conditions to allow for contingencies. Reputation. That's a really key one. Most of my clients that come to me, and I work with a range of different people. I work with people who are product-based businesses, service-based businesses, coaches, graphic designers, social media managers, dog walkers, cake makers. I work with a range of different entrepreneurs, all really passionate about delivering the best quality of service. And they, in each time, they want to make sure that their reputation is protected. And you do that by having clear sets of terms and conditions, okay? It's about telling people what you're going to do and then delivering on that. And that might, you might be like, well, that's really easy, Lucy. That's just telling people what I'm going to do and doing that. That can't be what legal is. But it is. It's setting out clearly the deliverables of what you're going to do. And we're going to come into it in a little bit more detail in a moment on that. Your ideas, you can see that there, protecting that. So your brand protection, we'll do that in a little bit more detail. And then you're protecting your clients. What do they want? Think about it from their point of view. They want to have clear terms. They want to understand what their duties are to you, to pay them. What happens if they don't pay you on time? How are you looking after their data? All of those sorts of things are going to be key, okay? And start with a checklist. For some reason, we had a QR code. I'm not sure why that's not just come up as I'm sharing the screen, so I'll have to share that with you later. But we've got, there's no definitive list that as to what you need to do with a checklist, but I have got a checklist for you, and I don't know if someone can pop this in the comments for me. Or in the chat box. It's lucylegal.co.uk/checklist. There was me trying to be all snazzy with my QR code, and it didn't work. But not to worry, I'll make sure you get that before the end. So it's just lucylegal.co.uk/checklist to help you with the things that you want to be doing. And what's in that checklist is things to consider, like insurance, your legal entity. How many of you, pop this bit in the chat box if you can, how many of you are a limited company? Let me know if you're a limited company or sole trader. Let me know in the chat box who is a limited company. Yeah, quite a few limited companies here, quite a few sole traders. We've got a good mix here. Both, says Cassie, brilliant, okay, partnership, yeah, sole trader. And this can be a bit that holds people back. They're like, I don't know if I should be a limited company. I don't know what that means. And essentially, a limited company is where it splits you from the company. As a director of the company, it's actually called the veil of incorporation. That's what they call it in the case law. But essentially, this veil comes down. We think of it as like something that's coming down and separating us from the business. And it does what it says on the tin. It limits your liability. Now, I would encourage you to work with an accountant to work out what the best financial setup is for you. They will probably say that unless you're earning around the £50,000 threshold, you should stay as a sole trader. But from a legal point of view, a lawyer will say to you, well, you're going to have the best personal protection in a limited liability company because your liability is protected. You are behind that veil and you're separated from the company, and it's the company that's liable for things, okay? Additionally, on that list, you're going to want to look at contracts, agreements, terms and conditions. Has anybody ever wondered what the difference is between a contract and an agreement or terms and conditions? Like, what is the difference between them? I think that's one of the things that people think, oh, everybody knows this, and I don't even know if I needed a contract or an agreement. They're essentially the same thing. And it can be really hard when you're just starting out to know if they are the same or how you would use them. And people use them in different ways, okay? So if you are selling something online, you probably would have terms and conditions. So the rule essentially is if someone is not signing something, so if you've got a set of terms and they're not being signed, so they're going on your website, they're being clicked to accept at the point of purchase, if someone is doing that, that's normally terms and conditions. Okay, that's terms and conditions. If someone is signing something, it's a contract or an agreement, and you can use those interchangeably. And I think even things like that, it can feel really daunting to not know whether you need both. And you also need to understand when you've got them, what you put in them. So in terms of, for example, your refund policy, there are 5 different types of consideration that you need to have for refunds. We're going to come on to that in a moment. And you can see the rest of the list there. We're going to look at privacy. You need to have website terms, including disclaimers. You want to think about protecting your brand, and also a plan to stay legitimate so that you keep up with new legislation. So at the end of last year, there was a relatively big piece of legislation that came into force for product-based businesses, the GPSR. So it's not GDPR, that's data protection. GPSR is the data protection legislation that relates to product-based businesses, and it relates to you if you sell to the EU. Have any of you heard of GPSR? Let me know in the comments if you've heard of GPSR, because I think if you are a product-based business, you will have done, because it's been a bit of a headache for a lot of people. And it's something that you have to do. It's not optional. So there are a number of things when it comes to legal where there'll be options and you can either do it or not. So it might come as a surprise that you don't have to have a contract. There are certain things in a contract, such as a refund policy, that you have to tell your clients about. And I'm definitely not advocating not having a contract, but it's not a legal requirement. There's not a law that says you must have a contract and it must be written out like this. But I think almost that makes it harder. And I think that that can be quite tricky sometimes, because there isn't this rule that says this is the way to do things. You're just left to find it out by yourself and to find the people who can guide you on the way. And so, as I was saying, there's new legislation coming in, or has come in on GPSR, and topics like AI. Who's using AI in their business so far? Has anybody started using that yet? Deborah's raised her hand. I'll come to you in a second, Deborah, if you want to ask a question. Let me know if you're using AI in your business. I'm just having a little look at some of the questions. We'll pause now and answer some of those questions. And then Deborah, I don't know if you had a question, if you can pop it in the question box, and then I can answer that too. So we've got a question about refunds here. I'm going to talk to that one in a moment, because I'm talking about refunds shortly. Someone else is saying they've got a late payment issue, so we'll try and come to that one in a little bit as well. Deposits as well, we can come to that shortly. So insurance, does a limited company still need public liability insurance, any other insurances? So as a lawyer, I can't recommend what type of insurance you can get, but you can go onto websites such as Money Supermarket or even Hiscox, like lots of different, I'm sure Lloyds probably have guidance that they can send you to as well in terms of insurance for small businesses. You can go on and just find out which ones you need, but yes, you may need one. Public liability insurance depends on what you're offering, so not all businesses would. It depends what kind of business you have as to what you need. So for example, you might need cyber insurance, you might not take it out. There are rules about what type of insurance you need dependent on what business you have. So Avatar, you should check and speak to a company that can give bespoke advice for your business, because everybody's will differ, but it's really great to be able to make sure that you've got the bespoke version that you need. And Avatar's also saying, I have a side hustle, how do I put that under my limited company? I'm not entirely sure how you mean, how do you put it under it? So if you've got a business, you can open up a limited company, you can do that through the UK government website, and you can set up a limited company to run your business through that. Okay, let's get on to some things about refunds, because that's one of the main things. So sales terms and conditions essentially, and refunds. There's a couple of questions about refunds. Let's have a chat about that. It's normally the case that when you get asked for a refund, it's because expectations have not been met. And that's where the disparity often happens, is people believe that they're getting one thing and they don't feel like they've got whatever it is they thought they were going to get. So say, for example, you go to a restaurant and you're like, oh, I wasn't happy with the service, or the food wasn't right, or it wasn't the experience I expected. It didn't meet my expectations. So it's really, really important before you even get to the part where you are looking at your terms and conditions, that you're really clear what you are selling. What is it that you are going to give to people to sell? If you're a product-based business, a service-based business, what is it that you are selling? Because we need to be putting that into our terms to avoid getting a refund request. A good contract shouldn't be something to fear. It should be something that both of you, that you understand and that your clients understand. And I think that's why we have a legal template shop full of templates. And I think that's why ours have done so well, because they're not full of complicated legal jargon. They're written by me, a friendly northerner, who writes in a way that people understand, because you want your clients to understand, because if they don't understand, they won't be able to do what they're meant to do either. And it is essentially a case when you're writing your contract to set out clearly what you're going to deliver and what you won't deliver. And I think this is the biggest piece that I see missing from people is they don't set out what they're not going to do. They'll say things like, oh, we're going to do this, but they're not really clear as to where their services end or what might be missing. And often this can be a case to upsell and to sell more of what you're doing. So say, for example, you are a personal trainer and you say, you are getting personal training from me. I'm going to help you with your health and well-being, but I'm not going to help you with your diet. And somebody might say, oh, well, I definitely need help with my diet. That's kind of why I'm coming to you. I need to know what to eat and I want meal plans. And you can say, oh, well, I've got that as an extra thing that you can buy. You can have that. Or potentially you might be a coach and you might have a group program or you might have a membership and you might say this, everything that you're being provided with is in a group setting. And lots of people would end their terms there and they'd say it's a group program, that's all you get. But what you could do is go a step further and say, you won't get one-to-one sessions with me. At which point someone might say, well, I want to work with you one-to-one. How would I do that? So you could say one-to-one sessions are not included, but please inquire, additional costs will apply if you want one-to-one. And people will go say, well, yeah, actually, I'd love a one-to-one every month as well. Can I add that on as an extra? And can you see how actually you can upsell your services as well? So what we wanted to be doing is making sure that we cover off the key issues that people are going to be facing when they work with you. People want to know when they're going to see results, when they're going to see improvements. If you're a social media manager, when are they going to go viral on social media? Will there be other people working on the project as well? For example, if you're working in the health space, will you be able to take them to a point and then say, oh, going to need to refer you to somebody else here. Like I'll help you till you get to this point, but then you are going to need further expert support. I'm the person that's right to see you now, but the journey to get you to where you need to be looks like this. Okay, so it's about explaining to people all of the key things that they need to know. That's what your contract needs to say. That's what the agreement needs to set out. And again, something that I don't see done a lot, but that could be really beneficial for you is what happens if things don't go to plan. So that's the part where I think this person knows what they're doing because it's that contingency. It's you saying, we're going to have a session every week for 6 weeks. But if you're ill, this is what happened. If I'm ill, this is what's going to happen. Okay. So it's about covering off what's going to happen if things don't go to plan. And that one we might think is really obvious, but it's things as well like being paid. This is what you're meant to do if you're meant to pay me on time. And if you don't pay me on time, this is what's going to happen. Okay, so think about the issues that you face the most in your business that are different for everyone and ensure that they are covered. We're going to look at some specifics in a second. I'm just going to check whether there's any questions on this section. I don't think there are any further questions right now, so that's fine, but do let me know if you need any more support at all. And I will, and I will answer those questions as we go along. So let's look at the terms you need. Deliverables, we've just been talking about this. What is included? Managing the expectations. And it's your job to do that. It is your job to tell people how long a client will take, a project will take, and it can be really hard when you're starting out. If a client's like, oh, I'm sure we just need 3 months together, and you know that they need 6 months, you have to find the confidence to sort of think, I'm not going to let this be a situation where in 3 months' time they haven't got the results and they want a refund for everything. I'm going to have to take a firm line here and say, look, this takes this amount of time. And if you don't do what you're meant to do along the journey, it also is going to take a lot longer because you're doing you and your client a disservice when you think things can be done quicker or suggesting that they can get results sooner because they probably can't. Okay, clarity on your charges. What are your fees? Be really clear, and it can be hard at the start to know what you're going to charge. Charging something and moving forward with that bit can be a real blocker. But even when you are further ahead, as I said before, thinking about, well, I'm about to hit the VAT threshold. Often my clients say things like that. They're like, what do I do when I hit the VAT threshold? And you have to be really clear in your contract as to whether things are going to incur VAT or they're not going to incur VAT. And if you're going to need to switch, and it's often wedding planners that have this, because the wedding industry, you're often working with someone over a really long time, and you might sign up with them and they're not VAT registered, and then later they are. So you need to be really clear as to when you hit the VAT threshold, you need to make sure that's covered as well. And that's a really important one to not miss, because otherwise it's a huge dent in your profits. You need to be able to see that coming and make sure that your contracts are going to protect you to charge for VAT if you need to. When will any additional fees be apply? When we talked before about when might they be increased? What happens if there's no payment or late payment? What is your plan if there's no payment or late payment? How will refund requests be handled? Has anybody ever asked for a refund? I would love to know in the chat box. I think we were talking about AI. Yeah, lots of people say no using AI. Has anybody asked for a refund? Hannah said no. So this is you asking for a refund, not being asked for a refund. I know that would be hard to say, but yeah, when the service or the product was not expected. Yeah, okay. So yeah, lots of people, a few people saying yes. So it's about 50-50. And what we yeah, too awkward. It feels like that, can't it? It can feel like that. And I think one of the things that I always think in my business is I want people to feel like it's an extension, my business is an extension of my brand values. And I really want people to enjoy the experience of working with me. I don't want there to be a scenario like where people purchase something and then they realize there's a sale happening. We're really clear like when we're going to do our sales, when we're going to change prices, we keep our prices at a certain point. And then with refunds, it's often, yeah, when you've lost faith in the business, and it's about carrying people with you. And you need to understand as a business owner, 5 key things: the who, what, when, where, and why of refunds. So who is asking you for a refund? And it makes a difference whether it's an individual or business. If you've worked with an individual, they have different rights. A consumer has different rights to a business. So who is the person asking in this scenario is important. What they bought is important, because if you're selling digital products, then you should have different terms and conditions on that say that they're not entitled to a refund if they change their mind. Okay, and there's wording that you need there to protect you as a business owner, because you don't want someone to just buy something, download it, and then say, oh, I want a refund now. When they purchased, if a consumer asks you for a refund within the first 14 days, they're entitled to one, subject to other certain things in play about what they bought, but they're entitled to a refund without even having to say why they want one, but only in the first 14 days. So when they're asking for their refund. Where they purchase something is also important. You have got different rights as a consumer, whether you're purchasing online or in person. So it's really important if you purchase something at an event, you're then in person, or are you doing it online if you're doing it digitally on your phone on their website? It's important that you have the consideration. So if you're product-based business, it's really important that you understand where people are, as to it makes a difference. If they're buying from you in the shop, you'll have different refund terms if someone purchases something from your shop versus if they purchase from you on the website. And why? Why are they asking for a refund? So in certain circumstances, if something is defective, a product is defective, you may be required to give them a refund, even if you don't necessarily want to. And you think, well, I don't want to give you one. The different rules are going to apply depending on why they're asking. So equally, if someone is coming to you after the 14-day period, you might have been working with them and they might be saying, I want a refund from you because I don't think you delivered a very good service. You can't say, oh, well, it's the 14-day refund, right? That you didn't ask me in the first 14 days, therefore you can't have one. That's not correct. And lots of people get that wrong. They think, oh, well, once we've got past that 14-day refund period, then we're fine. We can just, we won't have to give anybody a refund after that. That isn't correct. And the difficulty with that is if you don't know that, you can't have that money saved up and ready to protect your business. So one thing that I see a lot of people do, they come to me like for the first time and they go, oh gosh, Lucy, I've got this awful thing. I had an issue with a client. I kind of knew it was going to happen. I knew they were going to be a nightmare. I wish I hadn't worked with them. It happens all the time. It is really sad. But what they then say is, I can't give them a refund because I don't have the money to give them a refund. And that's where things can get really tight and really sticky. Whereas if you think, right, I'm going to put a portion of money to the side and keep that to the side so that if I do have an issue, then I can give them that money and I can then make a commercial decision as what's best for me and my business and my mental health. And sometimes it's a learning experience when you get your first refund request because you're like, actually, I probably could have done that better. Maybe you don't need to give one, but you might be thinking there's some actual truth in what they're asking, why they're asking for a refund, and it allows you to make the best commercial decision for your business if you set a pot of money aside. And that kind of thinking is why I say that legal really empowers the way that you run your business, because you feel confident. You know that that's coming. You know that it's not just 14 days when you might be liable to give a refund. It could happen at any point within the period of working with someone, and it can happen up to 6 years later in a contract. So contractual claims can be brought up to 6 years after you've started working with somebody. So it could be the case that you need to make sure that you do have this pot of money just to protect yourself. And again, as I say, it gives you that confidence and it makes you think, okay, the worst that could happen here is I'm going to get sued, and hopefully my insurance will support me. So I know I've got my insurance in place and that's ticked off. That was on Lucy's list. And I know that Lucy was saying about having this separate pot of money that's ring fenced to support me if I do think, yeah, do you know what? You're right. This person, they've made a complaint and it's legitimate, it's right, and you can give them a refund, okay? So it's about having that confidence to do those things. So we're here, I've got a few more points here in terms of what's going in the contract: contingencies, cancellation and postponement. Don't just cover off when things, don't just cover off what happens when things go to plan. Make sure you've got this plan B. Make sure you've got this expectation management about warning people about the results and things. And they've all got fancy titles, all of these clauses. So we've got your disclaimers, your limitation of liability. But really what it is we're saying are these general principles of telling people what you're going to do, how responsible are you for getting these results or for that product and what it can do? Are you offering a guarantee for a certain period of time that they will get results? It's all of those kind of things that you need to cover off. Being really clear in terms of your intellectual property and who owns that, who owns what's been created. And we're going to touch on IP in more detail shortly, okay? Data protection and confidentiality is another one. So you have to make sure you're doing the minimum. It's the law that you protect people's data. But also you can use your contract as an opportunity to communicate your boundaries. So you can say my working hours, I think you put this in your contract, my working hours are Monday to Wednesday, 10 till 4. And then you don't have to feel guilty if you've not responded because they knew at the start. You can put your out of office on and say, you knew when you were working with me, whether it might be a VA, it could be anything. We could say, I'm going to deliver my services to you on a Monday and Wednesday, but not outside of those hours. Or this is again where you could enhance what you're offering. You could say, these are my core hours. I can't support you. Or you can say, if I do support you, it's an additional support fee of £50 or £100 or whatever it might be, or it's another £25 an hour, whatever you want to add on, you can put that in there. So that one thing I get, and I don't know if a lot of you get it, so let me know in the chat because I think it can feel quite comforting if you're not the only one, but I think lots of entrepreneurs feel like they can't switch off. Do you ever get that? And you feel like you're constantly beholden to your emails, and like clients are going to email and their small businesses as well, and they want results. We all want to get our information straight away at the moment because that's the life we live in. We're quick on our phones and we're all on our emails and things. Yeah, Livy's saying people want instant replies. The Amazon effect. Yes, I love that phrase. Yeah, definitely, I mean it. And it can be really, really hard to manage that expectation, especially as an entrepreneur. So I think that having those boundaries in place, I'm saying this as a person who's been running their business for 6 years now. I definitely didn't have all of that perfect myself at the start. I still jump when clients get in touch for sure. But it's about having that confidence to say, actually, we're already over delivering on what we wanted to deliver on. I don't have to reply at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Tyra was asking, is there a claim on a refund on a deposit amount? I'm really pleased to ask that question, Tyra. So it depends. Sorry to be a legal person and say that. It depends how you phrase things. So if you are really clear that I really shy away from the deposit because it trips a lot of people up, because a deposit is a part payment of the whole. And if someone isn't going to get the whole service, then you would have to refund the deposit. Whereas if you call something a non-refundable booking fee, it is non-refundable and it is a booking fee and it is separate from the provision of the services. So a deposit is part payment of something you're going to have, whereas a booking fee, you can say this is a booking fee, and in booking this, you are reserving our time. We are taking away this opportunity for other people to purchase. So you can be really clear within your terms that that they're not refundable because they it's a deposit, it's a non-refundable booking fee rather than a deposit, otherwise you might have to give it back. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Tyra say next, brilliant. Okay, let's move on. I've answered quite a few questions as we've gone along, but if you do have questions, pop them in the Q&A and I'll come back to them at the end. So make sure this is sort of the break part now where we've finished talking about contracts and what goes in your terms and conditions. And essentially pop anything in the Q&A box about things you've always wanted to ask, anything you've always wanted to ask a lawyer. And let's whiz on now with data protection. This bit is hopefully not going to feel as hard as it's possibly felt before. I'm sure you've all heard of the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulations. They are the rules, legislation, the law that says that you have to protect client information. And actually, I've said a word wrong there. It's not just client information, it's information of the people who come to your business. So anybody that starts potentially being interested in working with you, so if they fill in an inquiry form, you are still obligated to protect their data, even if they aren't yet a client or even if they never become a client. You're obligated to protect people's data. And you have to have a clear policy in place and a statement that says how you capture, handle and store that data of clients and potential clients. If you handle data, there's also a high chance that you'll need to register with the ICO. The ICO is the Information Commissioner's Office, and they have got a little self-assessment tool on their website, which you can go on. And this is all detailed in the checklist, by the way, with a link to take you there. And it will say, like, check here to see if you need to register, and you can check. And if you need to register, you pay a fee, and it's not very much, less than £50. You pay that every year, and you're covered, and you get a little registration number, and you can put that on your website. So what do you need to do to protect data? We know this is one of the big ones. So refunds is one of the big ones. You have to tell people about their right to a refund. Data protection, you have to, as a business owner, handle people's data in accordance with GDPR. And it has to be done through 7 key principles. The principles are: obtain consent, state the purpose of which you're handling the data, use it for that purpose, don't get too much, ensure what you've got is up to date, don't keep it for longer than necessary, and store it properly when you're holding it. Okay? They're your 7 key principles. And that in practice could look like you having an opt-in page on your website. Somebody tell me what you do in your business and I'll give you an example. Oh, here we go. Hannah, she says she does email marketing tech for clients and the people who don't know about it. And Deborah's a virtual assistant. Okay, so we've got Hannah is email marketing, Deborah's a virtual assistant. We'll use both of you. Hannah and Deborah have got opt-ins that they want to people to get. They've got a checklist that like how 5 steps that can 5 ways that working with a VA can make your life easier, or 5 ways that email marketing can or 5 reasons why email marketing is the best type of marketing to be doing in 2025. Like, stop spending time on social. I'm a big email marketing fan. Something like that. They've got these great opt-ins. They pop them on their website and they ask people for consent. So they ask people to input the names into the form, okay? If you say something like on social media, DM me your email address, that's where things get icky. That's where things start to be a little bit like, oh, well, did they actually give permission and things? Pop it on a landing page on your website. You can even just get software now, which is just landing page only. And you can put the wording on there to say that people are consenting to you having their email address, and you can state the purpose. So what we're going to say is to get this amazing download, and also from time to time, I will be marketing to you. You can opt out at any time. You tell them up front that you're going to be sending them email marketing, and you can say things like, we won't ever spam you, we won't sell your data and all those things. You can say the things again, go that further things, say the things that you won't be doing, but tell them the purposes that you're going to handle that data, that you're going to have that data for. Then you're going to use that data for only those things. So Deborah is only going to be promoting her VA business. She's not going to start talking about this extra side hustle she's got, selling soap, for example. People have signed up to hear about her VA business. She's not going to talk to them about this other thing that she also does. She could say to something at the bottom of an email, she could say, I also have this opportunity, but you'd have to go and sign up to hear more about this. She could mention it if it's connected to her, but she should be very careful about doing that and not actually market the products because no one's provided consent for that. And when people are filling in those boxes, you get their name, you get their email address. You don't get their date of birth, the name of their first pet, their mother's maiden name. You don't need all of that. Just get what you need. Don't get too much. And if you're just getting those few things, maybe first name, last name, email address, you might capture something like type of business they run. So you might want to know that if people are, or how long they've been in business or something like that. You might capture that at that stage, but you probably don't normally at the first stage. You just ask for people for things you need. And ensure that you're keeping that up to date. So you're making sure that that information is kept up to date, and that might be by emailing people periodically to check it's up to date, and you don't keep it longer than necessary. So if you're providing services to people, Hannah's doing her email marketing services, she probably doesn't want to necessarily keep the data that if she's been in business for 10 years, she doesn't want to keep that if people aren't opening the emails for 10 years. So it's about making sure that that list is clean, and probably Hannah's a person that will be able to help you with that kind of thing, to make sure that you are keeping your email list up to date and not emailing people who are no longer interested. And you store it properly when you hold it. So when you capture that information, it should be going into a secure place. For example, and I'm not affiliated with any of these places, but just so you understand what I'm talking about, something like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or any sort of, there's so many places, but something that is reputable, that can hold it securely. We're not writing emails down on our notepad. We're not putting them into an Excel spreadsheet and then having them on our desktop. We're not doing that. We're putting them securely. And that's essentially what it is. We're capturing that information and holding it and keeping it securely. Okay. If you use AI in your business, or if your clients do, then you need to be transparent about the data, about what you're doing with data, and being transparency and the GDPR come hand in hand. And so it's really important that when you are using AI, that you are really clear as to what you've done with the data. So if you've put any databases into an AI product, it might be a ChatGPT, it could be saying, can you do this with this data? You need to be really transparent, and you need to tell people what you're doing with it. So if you're ordering or organizing data, or looking for themes or things like that, and if you're moving on people's data into a product like that, you have to tell them. That's a legal requirement under the GDPR. There's new legislation that came in last year, and it's being drip fed through. It's called the EU AI Act. And there's some big changes coming on the 2nd of August about AI. It's a very fast-paced area of law, and you need to be keeping on top of that as well. But it's really important that if you're doing anything with client information and AI, that you are compliant with the GDPR, because that is enforced now. And I've put up here a quick scenario about AI note takers and the privacy obligations with that. Think about it. If you're running a session and somebody says, like this one, can I bring my AI note taker into this Zoom room, please? Well, what's the process of that? Because everybody doesn't necessarily want their information keeping a note of what's been said in a training. Your obligations are with Small Business Britain. You signed up with them. They're going to look after and protect your data in the way that they've said they would. But then if everybody then gets given a copy, if everyone's bringing their AI note taker in, it means that they've all got copies of it, and how are they looking after it? So when you've all signed up, you've not given each other the authority and the permission, and essentially the consent is the key point. You've not given them consent to have your data. You've only given it to the person that you signed up to the masterclass with, okay? And it could be really tricky then, because say, for example, Small Business Britain gets somebody saying, well, I need to bring my AI note taker in because I've got accessibility requirements and I need to be protected, and that's protected under law, that I'm allowed to be protected. And I can't take notes quickly enough for this session because Lucy speaks really quickly because she's only got an hour. And you might think, oh, I need these notes. Well, Small Business Britain can say, okay, we can make a reasonable adjustment here, and we will take notes. We will record the session. We will look after you and make sure you are supported, and we will give you the transcript afterwards of what's been said. But we can't allow everybody to bring note takers in because it will cause issues, and that we've got GDPR compliance requirements that we need to think about and adhere to. Okay, so it's really important when you are doing that you think very carefully if you're bringing in an AI note taker or you're allowing others to bring them into your sessions. Kat's asking, does Shopify count as a secure place? Yes, you can check all of their privacy statements and how they operate on their terms and conditions. And sometimes as well, if you're always using Shopify, you can tie in their privacy policy into yours, and you can say, we utilize Shopify, your information will be shared there. Okay. I said about privacy questions, so make sure you do pop any privacy questions in the chat box as well. Something I'm very passionate about is data. Yeah, Hannah was saying that. I thought you might be given the job that you're doing. Let me see if there's any privacy things here that I can pick up now whilst we're on it. Yeah, you put, yeah, that's fine. Brilliant. Okay, I've answered those ones. I'll take those off. Good. Okay, so very last little topic, and I'm just going to cover this very quickly because I want to make sure we've got plenty of time for questions. Intellectual property. This is something that comes up that people don't really know, so I want you to understand. Intellectual property is IP. You'll hear people say, have you protected your IP? And I know that people are like, I don't even know what IP is. IP is intellectual property. Intellectual property is or are they're intangible assets. They're things that you can't hold on to. So whereas your property might be your business, your shop, your office space, those kind of physical places, your intangible assets, your intellectual property, are things like your frameworks, your ideas, the way you do things. You can't necessarily physically hold on to them. And there are 4 different types: copyright, trademarks, trade secrets, and patents, or patents, depending on where in the world you are based. Going through that list in reverse order, patents are your blueprints. They're the things that you need to register in advance of them going out into the world. So if you've not registered it yet, you won't be able to get one. It's the secret, the blueprint. It's often used in tech or phones. And you need to register those in advance. They can take quite a long time, like 5-7 years to come through. And they are the things that they're going to protect you. They're your assets, okay? And possibly a lot of you won't necessarily need those, but it's really helpful sometimes, I think, with legal to understand what something is and then be like, I don't need that. Brilliant. That's not something I need to worry myself about. Trade secrets, you'll possibly think you have them. You don't have them, but you do. It's the way you do things. It's the secret sauce. It's the way you it might be the actual ingredients that you put into something, or it may be your framework, it may be the way you approach a certain thing in your business, the way you do your marketing. It's the way you run your business, and you can protect those often within contracts. So if you are working with people and you're bringing people into your business, you'll say, this is the way that I work. You can't go off and copy me. You can't work with other competitors. And you can protect yourself, usually within a contract or often within an NDA. They're all acronyms, aren't they, in legal? Non-disclosure agreement you can have to protect your trade secrets if you're wanting to discuss issues with people in advance of working with them. And I'm going to talk to you about the other 2, copyright and trademarks, in a little detail now. Copyright, as a creator, you own the rights to what you've created. So I've created this slide deck, I own the rights to this personally. And it's important that we know that. So I know if I've created it, I own the rights. But if I get the graphic designer in my team to create this slide deck, then they own the rights to it because they've created it. And that's why it's really important to understand who owns it, because copyright is the right to be copied. And in the UK, you don't have to register that right, but you essentially can decide, and it's called reservation of rights. And you can see I put an example down there. That's a reservation of rights clause. So I can decide whether you are going to be allowed to copy this. So what I'll put, and you'll have seen it on the bottom of some of these slides, is I'll put my business name and the year that I've created this slide deck, and I'm putting all rights reserved, which means I'm deciding. I've not decided yet if you can copy me or not. I'm reserving all of my rights. I might let you use this slide deck. I might license it to you. I'm just reserving my rights. I've not said anything about it, but I'm just warning you and saying this is not for you to use because the copyright is mine. It's Lucy Legal Limited. That is the copyright. I've put the copyright symbol there and I've said this is mine. Okay, so it's thinking about copyrights. Everything you create yourself, you own. And if you don't create it, you don't own it. And it is as simple as that, but then you can then realize where you might have gaps or vulnerabilities if other people are working with you and you need your contract to cover that off. Finally, trademarks. You can register and protect a word, a collection of words, a slogan, an image, a collection of sounds. And let me know in the chat if you've got a trademark or if you'd like one. Registrations by country. You can own a trademark as an individual, even if you're not yet a limited company. That's something that a lot of people think at the start. It's like, when should I get one? There's no set time that you should get one, but if you have a great name and you don't want anyone else to take it, and you're like, this is the best name ever, I really don't want anyone else to use this name or use this framework or use this thing, then you need to get it registered, okay? And you choose whether you're registering certain goods or services, and they last for 10 years. So it's quite a good investment, but they cost as little as £170. So many people don't realise that. You can get a trademark for £170 in the UK. It will only cover you for the UK because they're territorial, registered by country, but it starts from £170, which is really, really, really quite affordable for a lot of people. And you can actually split the cost. If you go down the split the cost route, you can apply, and the government website is so good. They're so good, the Trademark Office. You can apply yourself. They're really friendly. And if you're applying with just one class, it's £170. But if you want to split the payment, you can split it into 2 installments of £100. So they charge you a little bit more, and they charge you £200. But they're really great. So if you need to get a trademark and you haven't got one yet, then definitely look into that. I'm conscious of the time, and I'm happy to go into every element that we've talked about in more detail. But essentially, your next steps from today, let's do those so you know where you're going, is to create a list of the things that you need to put in place to give you solid foundations. If you head to lucylegal.co.uk/checklist, you'll get a list to help you on the way. Get a gold standard contract or set of terms, because that's going to give you confidence. We've spoken a lot about those terms, what needs to go in them. Even if you're writing them yourself, it's not illegal to write them yourself. You don't need a lawyer to do it. You can set those terms and conditions using the clauses that we went through today, and make sure you've got a plan of those other elements. So you don't have to do everything on day one. There are certain things we've said you have to do. You have to tell people about refund requests. You have to make sure you're looking after people's personal data, but you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do all of the things. You don't have to get a trademark right away. There are certain registrations you will need to do, but not everything. So it's about having a really clear plan as to what you're going to do to get those other elements in place to stay protected, okay? Oh, there's another image. I don't know why they've not popped through. I don't know why that's not come through on our site. It was working before, but essentially there's a lovely image of me saying, don't let fear stop you from creating the life and business of your dreams, okay? It can feel really scary and daunting when you're running your own business. All of it feels daunting, but don't let it be the legal stuff. I really don't want you to it to be the legal things for you. And you can find me here on all these social channels. I'm mostly on Instagram, and you can get me on LinkedIn as well. And I'm just going to keep that up whilst I start looking at some of these questions, so that I can cover those off for you. Let's have a look. Okay. So lots of people having to go and come back. Thank you so much for everybody for your time today. I'm really grateful that you've joined me here. Tyra's saying, do you put your name or business name in the copyright? The person that owns it is. So that's maybe not the answer you were thinking, but it's whoever owns it, so whoever designed it. So if I wanted to own it personally, I would put Lucy Wheeler. If I want to own it as the business, I'll put Lucy Legal Limited. So it depends who owns it, who's creating it. So it's that bit of a division. If you are a limited company, who is it that's owning it? Kelly said, would love to trademark, but told the brand name will be classified as offensive. Oh, gosh, well, maybe don't say that one out loud, but happy to have a conversation with you offline about what that might be. Yeah, there's certain things. We could do a whole training on trademarks, and if you'd love me to come back, I would love to host it for you. Trademarks is something I do all the time, and it's one of the best feelings as well when people get their trademarks. You get them late on a Friday evening, so it's just so perfect when people feel like they've gone to that next level and got their trademark. But yeah, there's certain things you can trademark and some things you can't, and offensive things you can't trademark. Can they be renewed? Yes, Kimberly, every 10 years you can renew them. Z's saying like a trademark. I trademarked my trading as name, Wonky Stuff. Oh, love Wonky Stuff. Great idea, John. I think that's a really nice name as well. And it feels like I know about your brand now because you've said Wonky Stuff. That's a really good one. Classes is probably outside the scope of this training, but essentially there's 45 classes and you choose at least one of them. So if you're coaching or consulting, it's class 41. If you've got a book, it's class 16. Podcasts can be class 41 as educational. Depends what you do. And you can find it out on there. It's called the NICE guidelines. NICE classifications is what they are, NICE, and it's the same worldwide. So you can see the whole list of 45. Question from, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Nathambu. Is it important to get a trademark? It's important because if you don't have a trademark, I suppose this is the flip side of it, that you might be infringing on other people. Okay, so you might infringe on other people's work if you are using their name that they've registered, and that's the risk. So if you don't do that, you at least have to do the searches to see if a trademark, see if the name is available, because if it's not available and you're infringing on someone else's trademark, essentially. And that would be illegal and they'd be able to claim from you. Deborah said, I was taught that if I searched the net and found people, companies that I want to contact myself and market to them via their info out addresses, if I approach them individuals, I'd be able to comply with data protection. So there is a marketing loophole that you can use if the information is public, but that kind of conduct is often seen as spammy and spam marketing. You have to be very, very careful, Deborah, if you're doing it. It's not necessarily illegal, but you've got to do it in a certain compliant and transparent way. In every single email, you must give people the marketing email. You must give them the option to opt out. So you may be able to contact them once and give them the option to opt out, but it's often seen as spammy if they've not got in touch with you. Lots of people saying thank you so much. Yeah, Gail's saying please do check out our free business learning modules. Definitely do that, free for everybody. Yeah, well that's even better. It will really help everybody. If you're not even banking with Lloyds, you can get access to those learning modules. And she's put the URL there, so definitely go. Oh, thank you so much. Lots of people saying thank you and how informative it's been. Deborah's just picking on that. Yeah, that's why I stopped a few months ago, because it feels a bit spammy. Let me go into the Q&A. Oh, hold on 1 second. I should make sure I share these slides. This is the QR code, I think, that will take you straight through to the small business link that they wanted. So let me just leave that one on whilst I'm answering the, sorry, I've just said that wrong. It's Lloyds. That's the Lloyds link, not the Small Business Britain link. Let's take some more questions from the Q&A now. So we've got an anonymous attendee waiting for clarification on the above. Do the business terms and conditions on refunds and cancellations of a membership plan supersede the UK law that states 14 days cooling off period after the charge? So as we discussed within this training, it will totally depend on what your setup is. So if you are doing a B2B membership, you don't necessarily that's business to business, you don't necessarily need to give people 14 days to change their mind. In addition, if you are giving people access in your membership to instant access to something, and you make it clear at the point of purchase that they won't be entitled to a refund because they're getting instant access to digital content, for example, then that essentially, it doesn't supersede, it just they sit alongside each other. It just, a different rule applies. So if somebody is purchasing something and they're getting instant access and you've told them at the point of purchase, and that's really important, it can't be buried in your terms and conditions, it has to say at the point of purchase, you're accessing a digital product, therefore you're not entitled to 14 days if you change your mind, then you don't give them a refund if they change their mind. But if they access your membership and they say, oh, I thought I was going to get this in the membership, it said I was going to get this and you've not given me this, whatever it is they're asking for, they still have a right to ask you for a refund within that initial period and later, because as I said, then that's it's the why element. Why are they asking you for that refund? So essentially, when you're setting up your terms and conditions of business, your refund policy is so important, but it's going to depend on those 5 factors that we talked about. Okay.
I think, yeah, thank you, Lucy. I think sadly we've got to wrap up now, unfortunately, but that was absolutely incredible. Have you got the other slide, I think, from Lloyds as well, that we can just pop on? That was absolutely amazing. Thank you, Lucy. So much information. And thank you for all your amazing questions as well and comments. It's such a hot topic, isn't it? And like you say, we could go on for days, so many sessions on it. So Lucy, thank you, that was fantastic. Can you join us for our next one in the series? It's going to be on the 26th of June, and we're talking all about scams and how to avoid them, and we're going to be joined by the lovely Samantha Hancock from Derbyshire Police, who's going to lead us on a session there. So please do join us if you can, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again, Lucy. Thank you, Gail from Lloyds. Enjoy the sunshine, everyone. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.